the next setup is going to be an underhook. This is a very common position that wrestlers typically favor. It's a very strong position because you maintain inside control of your opponent and you establish an angle that is both favorable for you to attack, as well as establishing an angle for your opponent that is unfavorable from their perspective, in other words, from their ability to attack you. How do you get the underhook? There's a number of ways. One simple way, I think, and an effective way is, one, when I attack my opponent to begin to get the underhook, I want to make sure my elbow is in pretty good, and it also helps me if he attacks. I'm ready for my sprawl. I'm not going to keep my elbow up, because if I keep my elbow up, Colby here is going to beat me to the punch. Now, Colby here is a smart wrestler, and he's not going to be just hanging his elbow up, inviting me to get an underhook. So I've got to manipulate him to get that position effectively. One way of doing that is with kind of a collar tie. And what I'm going to do, it's a cross between a collar tie and a head pop or head rake that we did earlier. The difference is I'm going to make him go circularly. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to clip his head, and I'm going to try to capture the back of his head and partially to the side with my palm. I'm going to try to capture the front side or the opposite side of his head with the front part of my deltoid. So I'm trying to capture this part of his head with my palm and this part of his head with my deltoid. I'm going to not so much try to grab in on him as so much as to try to pull his head to my deltoid, and then I'm going to rotate. What does that do? That's going, by rotating his head this way, you'll notice the direction his shoulders go down. This shoulder comes up, there'll be a tendency for me to get space here. We'll show it from this angle. If I manipulate his head position down and across, there's a tendency as his shoulders turn for me to be able to get a little space to come in here for my underhook to this position here. So I'm going to grab here, and when you do this, you have to manipulate your opponent. It's not, I'm not going to be just trying to pull him here. If I don't make contact here, I can't twist his body. For me to twist his head, it has to be a vice between my hand and my deltoid. It has to be a vice between my head and his deltoid. Once more. So we're in here. When I come up here, I'm going to club him. This isn't exactly behind, it's slightly behind and to the side. And again, my deltoid is going to make contact with the front and opposite side of his head. Here. And then I'm going to come in. Now, one thing I want you to notice is where my head goes immediately. I want to have my head position inside. If I have an underhook and Colby has position, while I still have reasonable position here, that's not nearly so favorable as if I have my head inside. So it is critical that I can get my head inside. It is taught a lot to simply just try to get your head inside your opponent's head here. I think it's more effective when I initiate this attack and I get my underhook in, so I'm pulling down. Notice the circle. As I pull down, the arm comes in. And notice, too, I'm stepping in. So Colby is going to be here. I'm going to grab. I'm going to do it slow. I'm going to come in. Okay? You'll notice that I've kind of changed my angle relative to Colby here. Now, instead of concentrating on just trying to put my head towards the side of his face, because when I do that, a lot of times he might just be quicker and beat me to the punch. Focus on getting your head or your forehead to the deltoid and sliding it up. So after I've popped Colby here, and I come in here, I'm not going to try, because he may beat me to the punch here. I'm going to try to get my head here. Now get your head. And I'm going to be able to establish position better that way, even if he's a little quicker pulling his head in. I'm going to start at the deltoid. I'm going to slide up with my head. So even if he's in here, if my head can kind of get in this triangle area here, it's going to get inside. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in here, and I'm going to slide forward, as opposed to just trying, oh, now Colby beat me. Now that's a different game. Okay? So that's how I obtain the underhook. I club. It's a vice between the back, say if I'm using my right hand, the back right side of his head against my palm and the forward left side of his forehead with my upper deltoid here. And I'm going to keep it together. I'm not so much coming to him, I'm trying to pull him to me, and I'm going to pull down in a circular motion. What that's going to do is that's going to turn his body, and my arm comes up to get the underhook. Immediately, my head, as my arm is coming into that his deltoid, and then it's going to slide up. I can't get the underhook, then decide to get head position. That's a mistake. Head position needs to be obtained simultaneously with getting the underhook. Once more, I'm going to approach. I'm going to pop here. I'm going to come into this position right here. Notice, too, right now, I have kind of a collar tie on this side, and that's fine for me to start out with. Now, once you have an underhook, what do you do with it? And I'm talking about what do you do with it before you actually try to initiate a technique. One thing you don't want to do with it, and this is a principle I'll probably harp on a lot over this video series, particularly as we get into both offense and defense on our feet in terms of formal takedowns and formal defense once our opponent has initiated an attack. I never want my opponent's weight to be neutral, at least any time I can prevent that. Why? If Colby's weight is neutral over his body, he has a lot of ability to move. He's very mobile. And if he's mobile, he's more likely to be more effective both offensively and defensively. Now, if Colby has to hold me up, if Colby has to hold my weight, now move around. Colby cannot be nearly as mobile, and he's not nearly as comfortable. Not only that, he's going to get tired fairly quickly supporting my weight. So, one principle with the underhook, as well as that will move across various domains in terms of offense on our feet and defense on our feet, is I either want my opponent's weight down to make him very heavy so that he's got to be resisting to push up, or I want to be jacking him up so that he's not in a comfortable position to be very mobile because he's not able to put his feet exactly where he wants because I'm holding him up, and so that's going to limit his mobility. But generally speaking, with an underhook, I've got to make a decision. Do I want the weight down or do I want the weight up? My view of what's what in this situation is, generally, if you're shorter than your opponent, which is going to be my case nearly all the time, I want to sag. So if I'm in this position here, or if I have the wrist here, okay, or hand control here, I want to keep my weight down. When I keep down, that doesn't mean I pull my head away. I keep my head buried in here like a tick. Okay, I'm not going to let this go. But what I want to do is I want to put a lot of weight here on this leg so that he's got to support himself and me. Kind of move around here a little, Colby. Okay. So if I'm going to sag here, this is the position I want. You'll notice here, I'm in here. By sagging, I don't mean this with my back. By sagging, I'm lowering my hips. But I'm using my weight. I'm cupping here. So this is the hook, and it's kind of like, support me please, Colby. I'm hanging on him here. It's not going to be quite that much because my feet are on the ground, but that's what I'm endeavoring for. Okay, I'm going to hang on him, now move around. That's very difficult for him to move around. I'm going to try to simulate that as much as I can by keeping my weight here and sagging. This stays tight. It's not arm power. This is just a frame here that I'm going to sag with. So I'm using my weight. Okay? That is an important principle that you'll see will make a lot of sense as we go through this series in a lot of different situations. It gets him tired. One, because he's got to support my weight as well. He's got to support his weight as well as some of my weight. And two, he's less mobile, which means it's going to be more favorable for me to attack and probably more difficult for him to initiate an attack. Now, alternatively, you can jack your partner up. And by doing that, you simply lift them up. Now, as you can see, because Colby's taller than I am, that's probably not going to be as effective for me. But for people that are taller, if Colby jacks me up, you can see here, I am not in very good position mobility-wise. He's holding me up. I have less than my full weight down on the mat, and I'm not able to get much mobility here. And certainly, he's jacking me up so that his body is controlling my body. In that instance, he's jacking me up. I want you to notice his leg when he does that. When he jacks me up, his feet are close to mine. He's not worried about me grabbing his leg. I'm jacked up here. I can't reach his leg. He's got good head position, and he's jacking me up so that I'm on my toes just about. He's in really good position here. He's close. That's one of those situations where an experienced wrestler, and this is one of other situations too, where an experienced wrestler knows they're safe with their feet quite close, or their legs quite close to their opponent. They feel comfortable with that. You don't want to try to jack me up and keep your feet away. Okay, you don't want that, okay? I got attacks from here I can initiate. He just simply wants to keep his hips in tight, and jack me up. His hips are tight into me, his legs are close. I'm in very unfavorable position here. So, once you have the underhook, you want to sag, and you'll notice too as I sag, again, I'm not sagging out here with my legs far out. I'm sagging in close, and I'm keeping my weight on him. I want to keep a lot of weight here so that it's like he's got to support me. Okay? I'm sagging here. This will make more sense as we go into the actual attacks. Alternatively, you jack the opponent up. But we never just want to dance where I have an underhook and I'm not either going down or up. And it, again, largely depends upon my height relative to my opponent's. Although, even though Colby's a little taller than me, I could still make this work. Probably not as good as jacking him down or pulling him down, but I can make this work as long as he's not too much bigger than I am. But all things being equal, for our shorter guys, the sag is better. For the taller guys, jacking them up is better. The other thing too, generally speaking, whether I'm jacking them up or not, whether I'm jacking them up or sagging, try to control the opposite hand if you can. Okay? I can tie up in here in this situation too. I think this is probably even a little bit more favorable. But either way is fine. But you'll notice I'm going to use this other hand to try to control my opponent.